All right, so here we are with pocket tens. This is going to be hand number 6 on an 8-handed table, and we're in the small blind with pocket tens. Middle position +2 is the first to open to 3 big blinds with 1 caller in the cutoff, and the action is full to us. We elect to overcall, which is just too passive. We should definitely be squeezing here, especially given the stack sizes of the initial raiser, which, as you can see, after his 3 big blind raise is going to be additional 28 big blinds more. Not that much. As played, the big blind overcalls and we take a flop. The flop comes out 6-4-3 rainbow board, and the initial raiser elects to c-bet to a very small size and about 4 big blinds into a 13 big blind pot with only 24 big blinds remaining. And the cutoff ends up folding, and we call the 4 big blind bet, which is going to be a mistake in this particular case. Again, the raiser who bet the 4 big blinds is short. He only has 24 big blinds and the pot size is 17. So it's going to be an easy raise when we dominate this board. And our hand is under-repped because we only called pre-flop. Now, the turn card pairs a board being a 6 of spades. The villain bets 9 big blinds, and at this point in time, there's no reason to raise. So on the river is a 3 of hearts. We end up checking as we should, and villain checks as well, which is no surprise because he flopped a straight, and river is actually not a great card for him. He did flop the nuts, and we would have been raising into the nuts. However, we can't be results oriented in the long term result. If we raise on this type of board against this type of action, we're going to end up being a winner, being ahead long term. So in hand number 7, we're on the bubble. We're in the big blind with king, jack of hearts, and the small blind opts to make it a min raise, being 2 big blinds, and we opt to call. And I like this call for a few different reasons. One being the ICM considerations. If we make a 3-bet and he jams, we're just in a terrible situation. We really don't want to risk 2/3 of our stack, being that we are on the bubble and we're likely to cash. So I do like a call for those reasons. So the board comes out queen 6-5 with 2 spades on the board. And again, we have king jack with 2 hearts. So the villain, who's in the small blind, bets out around half pot, 2 big blinds into a pot of 4.5 big blinds. So we definitely want to be calling here. I know that our student had pull up the stats, and the villain had bet 2 out of 2 times for a c-bet. That stat is irrelevant at this point because the sample size is so low. So at this given time, we are going to be calling a lot here because we do have overs, we have the backdoor flush draw, and we have the backdoor straight draw as well. So that brings us to the turn, and turn brings out the jack of spades, completing the flush. And villain decides to bet 2 big blinds once again into a pot of 8.5 big blinds. So at this point in time, the villain could be afraid of the flush. However, the villain is also going to have lower holding than ours. He's going to have weak pairs. In this particular spot, I would opt to raise it up and see what villain does after that. Now, this is not a tester bet by any means. This is a value bet. So we opt to call the turn, and the river brings the 10 of hearts. Now, villain decides to bet 5 big blinds into a total pot of 12.5 big blinds. We are still getting okay-ish odds. The 10 is really not a great card. However, with the odds we're getting, I do think that villain is going to show up with some worse hands. It would be a bit closer if villain made it a bigger bet, but I think the odds we're getting, I think it's fine to be calling here. Villain, hero decides to fold this time. In hand number 8, we are 4-handed, also in the bubble in this hand, and we're on the button with pocket 6s against 1 limp. So this is going to be a clear isolation raise, and the shorties have 12 big blinds. So since they are fish, I see the green tag in one of them. I believe that indicates that they are a fish. Now, if that is the case, I would make an unusual raise, which would be an isolation raise to 6 big blinds here, because I want to put those shorties to the test. Again, this is a little bit of a abnormal situation because both of the shorties have exactly the same stack. So I would be making that raise with the intention of putting them to the test. I do not want to see them to call. Now, in addition to those reasons I just stated, the 24 big blind stack, the other player in this particular case, ICM would play a factor because we have them covered. And I want to give the impression that even if this guy with the 24, 25 big blind stack, if he raises all in, he has no fold equity. I want him to think that. So I believe with this raise, it accomplishes multiple things. Now, as played, we make it 4 big blinds, and the fish in the small blinds come along to see a flop. The flop comes out 8-3-2 with 2 diamonds on the board. Villain jams his 8 to 9 big blinds into a pot of about 10.5 big blinds, which to me, this is a snap call. Now, the villain's going to be doing this with any pair whatsoever. Again, sometimes he will have an 8, and we are going to lose, but I think a lot of the times he's going to have flush draws, he's going to have worse pairs, and he's going to have random overcards or maybe only one overcard, given the pot and given his shove size. Now on to the next hand, we have hand number 9, and we are heads up with villain, and we elect to open limp in position with 9-7 offsuit, which is totally reasonable, and I would make the same play with a wide range of hands. So at this point in time, when you play heads up, you have to analyze the opponent. As you play more hands, you're going to be adjusting based upon your opponent's tendencies and everything else. And the other factor too that you have to realize is the effective big blinds. So we have to analyze how many big blinds are at play effectively, and we employ a strategy based upon that. So with all those factors present, I would make 2 different categories of pre-flop actions, one being a limping range and the other being a min-raising range. We will not have an open jamming range in this particular case because the villain, there's a green tag on him indicating that he's likely to be a fishy player. So after calling a small min-raise, the flop comes out king 9-5, 2 hearts. Now the villain who elected to raise our limp is now checking. So this indicates that he's probably going to give up or maybe call with an overcard, or maybe call with bottom pair or middle pair, or something along those lines. So we decide to bet 1.4 big blinds, and villain elects to call. Now that brings us to the turn, which is another 9. So at this point, that's the best card for us. And we're basically nutted at this point in time. And we decided to bet half pot, which I think is pretty reasonable. I like it. And villain decides to call. Now the river improves us even further, which is the 7. So I said we were nutted on the turn. We're absolutely nutted on the river. So this is all great. But the problem lies is that with all these cards hitting us, what does villain have? Now we have to employ a strategy now that whatever we believe that villain has, we have to put him on a hand range. After that, we decide how much to bet. We don't decide how much to bet based upon how bad we want to be called, or if we want to bluff in a particular instance, we want to make it a lot of money because we're bluffing. That's not the right way to think about these situations. So in this situation, first I want to see what she does. So what she does is she bets approximately 35% of the pot, which to me, I can understand why she bet that much. I mean, with our hand and everything else, villain's fishy. But the thing is you have to put villain on a range of hands. So villain is going to have hands such as king 8 offsuit, king 8 suited. All these combos are going to be both the offsuit and suited side. King 8, king 6, king 4, king 3, king 2. He's also going to have hands such as pocket 6s, pocket 8s, pocket 10s, pocket jacks, etc. So those are the hands that we want to target. So we want to bet a healthy amount that targets those particular combos that also gets calls for the maximum amount of chips that we can accumulate. So for the conclusion of episode number 6, watching my student play live, I was happy to see that my student had a better overall approach to these 9-man sin goes. She had a more solid foundation in the game, more confident in her decisions. I saw pre-flop that automatically she'd be shoving in some spots where she normally would be calling or unsure what to do. She made some immediate decisions, which was great to see. Now, moving forward, the videos that would best suit her needs is going to be homework assignment videos where I give her pre-flop and post-flop spots, and ICM spots where she has to analyze the situation, give me a hand range, and what would she do in that particular situation. And with that, if you have any additional questions, comments, or concerns, or want a free one-on-one training, contact me at damymarin@gmail.com.